Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon. Today we're looking at the E-75. We're following Garbad around in it as he's on Swamp. This is a great replay, and it's great for some reasons that you're not going to expect. The shape of the hill in front of him is going to have some interesting effects. First, notice how it slopes down gradually. That's going to naturally hide the lower plate of the E-75. That's the weakest point frontally that the M103 will be able to hit. The area on the east side of steps also has this gradual sloping phenomenon where you can pull up to the side of a hill and be hull down rather than cresting a hill as is traditional in a hull down. Now look at the reticle. The hill doesn't exactly end where the game says it ends. Now yes, this is a 9.0 replay, and there are some things that are going to be messed up in the replay as showing, for example, if you look on the mini-map, it says Garbad has 5 platoon mates. That's obviously incorrect. The auto-aim is going to be screwed up. But when you are near cover, like he was, actually you can kind of shoot through the hill. It's not solid where you expect it to be solid. So you can abuse that at points, both for you and against you. Your enemy can hit you when you think you're in cover, and there's that little bit of leeway where you're not exactly in cover. Or you can use it like Garbad did and appear to shoot through the hill. The basics of it in video game parlance is that there is a visual model and a hit model. What you see is not actually what gets damaged all of the time. And when you're working with the landscape on any particular map, try to shoot or get as close as you can to some hills. If the reticle is showing that you're going to hit the enemy tank, take the shot because you're going to be able to hit the enemy tank. That's the bottom line. Now we're getting to the next part of why I enjoy this replay so much. So it looks like on the surface that the east flank has just been annihilated and they are rolling to victory. Garbad is not going with them, and this is due to the voice of experience right there. It's because the TDs are going to be congregated around the B8 area, and they are made up of a lot of high alpha, high camouflage tank destroyers who are just going to annihilate things that move up that east side. It's really, really hard to push cap, even when you're up 8-4 as they are. There are a few multi-stage maps in the game, and by that I mean you have to win one area first, then you have to clear out another area. You have to do everything in pieces. You can't just win your flank and then proceed to cap on this map. Other maps like that are Cameron and El Haluf, where you have to take it piecemeal. Pushing your advantage on these maps is actually very difficult because they can bleed you either around hills or just over the large distances or just by the camo system. So there's a lot of tank destroyers left, and they're all in the waffle line, high alpha, incredible camouflage. So the green team will not be able to see these tank destroyers pretty much until after they fire, and after they fire, that means they're just going to kill a tank when they do. The other difficulty is there's just 400 meters of open terrain between where Garbad is and the cap, meaning he has to just drive straight into the enemy without cover for several hundred meters. That's just suicide. So instead of suiciding, Garbad is going to check out different angles. He's going to float to the west side and try to push up the A line. While he does, let's talk about the E-75 for a moment. This is a Tier 9 German heavy tank, characterized by really solid frontal protection, okay mobility, and a fairly decent gun. But what makes the E-75 so strong and very unique is the consistency of the armor layout on the tank. A good player is able to angle the armor very well and very easily due to that consistency. Frontally, there are no real weak points on the E-75. Even straight on at the lower plate, it still basically offers 250 millimeters effective protection. That's really good. And when angling it, you can get above 300. That's amazing. On some tanks, like the Wheezy 1.4, the upper front plate is going to be very strong, while the lower front plate is going to be very weak, so there will be times where you think you're hiding the lower hull, and you're not, and you're just going to get screwed by that. They're just going to be able to damage you. Or they'll be able to shoot down at an angle on the Wheezy, and even though it did hit the front upper plate, it's at a downward angle, negating the advantage of its slope and be able to penetrate, so on and so forth. The E-75 is a very angle-friendly tank that only gets better with angling. So even if you don't angle, it's still a tough frontal target, and if you know how to use the angles, it's nearly impossible to penetrate for the most part. The side armor is 120 millimeters thick. That's awesome, not because it's going to bounce shots just on its thickness alone. No, that's not going to happen. But because you're not going to have overmatching problems. The M103 has side armor that is only 44 millimeters thick, so even when you're trying to reverse angle or side scrape with the M103, most of the big shells, 120 millimeter or above, are just going to auto-penetrate when they hit the side of the M103. That's a pretty big liability. The E-75 does not have that, so reverse angling with the tank is going to be very effective. The mobility of the E-75 is not too bad at all. It can get up to a cruising speed of 40 km/h, allowing you to move around the map relatively quickly. The traverse speed, not terrible. You're going to be able to maneuver somewhat well in close quarters. So it definitely does not sink the tank. It's not an overall positive. It's pretty comparable to other heavies. The gun on the E-75 is probably not the best in tier for a heavy, but it does have its charm. It does have 8 degrees of gun depression, allowing the E-75 to play on a variety of terrain. It also has 490 alpha, which is pretty respectable, even at tier 10. The damage per minute is pretty low at 1800. That doesn't sink the tank by any means. It's just, I'm trying to hunt for a downside, and that's pretty much the only downside I can think of to the E-75. The effective aim time is going to be a little bit higher on the E-75 than with other tanks, but that's not bad because of that strong frontal protection. You can actually take the extra second or two that you need to aim to hit that shot. The camouflage is not great on the E-75 as well, but it's a heavy and no one expected it to be that great, so not really a downside there either. Overall, the E-75 just has a lot of positive traits. It's easily one of the best heavies in the game, one of the best tanks in the game, and it only gets better with skill. The more situational awareness and the more effective you are at angling, the better it's going to perform. It's a really great tank. Garbad wrote up a full review on it, link in the comments. Go check it out. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.